Along the southeast area of the San Fernando Valley and the northern edge of Griffith Park along West Zoo Drive is an open-air railroad museum known as Travel Town. The focus of the Travel Town Museum is railroad transportation equipment from around the Los Angeles area and the western United States from about 1880 to the 1930s. The Railroad Museum contains 43 full-scale railroad engines, cars, and other rolling stock on exhibit. There are 10 different examples of locomotives on displays, along with freight cars, caboose, passenger cars, and cable cars in the outdoor exhibit. There's also a model train ride that circles the museum area. Full-scale locomotive engines, retired steam engines, and interesting old railroad cars are a collection of antique transportation equipment open to the public on most weekdays and weekends. With parking for 200 cars, the entrance to the museum opens over a bridge that spans across the miniature train tracks which circles the perimeter of the museum's grounds. There are 5 sections of train track spanning the museum's grounds where large locomotives are on display. On the right side of the grounds is an exhibit building that houses the more fragile and delicate equipment from the elements. Behind the exhibit building is a courtyard with a gallery on the north side, a visitor center, and the scaled train ride with ticket and boarding area. 2 of Travel Town's vintage passenger rail cars are used for special events such as birthday parties, social gatherings, and meetings. The Travel Town Museum was established in 1952 by the Los Angeles Recreation and Parks Department to educate the public about railroad history in Southern California. One of the largest industries at the time, the museum looks to restore, operate, and present these examples of 19th century transportation technology which changed the country and helped foster the modern age. Nearly all the railroad equipment are one-of-a-kind survivors of a world from 100 years ago or more. The Southern Pacific 3025 was built in 1904 and is one of the most impressive locomotives in the collection. A couple of the locomotive's cabs are easy to access and give visitors a sense of what it felt like to stand at the controls of these massive engines as they once rumbled down the steel tracks crossing the country. With a connection with the rest of the country by rail with the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, what followed was 100 years of development and expansion of railroad infrastructure, with railroads influencing the states and nation's social, political, and economic development. With the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad building westward, they chose Los Angeles as their western terminus. Until then, Southern Pacific Railroad had a near monopoly supplying transportation in California. With the shipment of California-grown fruit east on rail lines, the citrus industry quickly expanded, planting the large orchards that the Southland is famous for. As out-of-state markets of citrus expanded, the 1890s was known as the Orange Era. Rail transportation dropped in the 1940s and 50s with the rise of the interstate highway system and the ownership of a car. By the 1960s, most long-haul and commuter trains ceased operation. The museum has a unique collection of historical railroad relics from the height of the industry, with additional engines and cars on display under an awning similar to those used in railway stations. The Sharps and Fellows locomotive was built in 1902 by the American Locomotive Company and donated to the museum in 1954. The drive wheel is 56 inches in diameter and the engine weighs 75 tons. Examples of freight cars built in 1881 and an oil tank car were donated by the Union Pacific Railroad in 1954. A Union Pacific caboose, also built in 1881, was donated in 1952. The locomotive known as Electra was donated by the Pacific Electric Company in 1953. While it looks smaller, it weighs in at over 50 tons. A Union Pacific dining car is under reconstruction, marking its 100th year. Restoration of rolling stock continues, with volunteers supplying their skills to return these cars to their former glory. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe engine was built in 1899 by Baldwin and was donated in 1953. In the Traveltown Gallery is an exhibit profiling Fred Harvey, who established the Harvey Houses, a series of restaurants on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway that provided food and meals to hungry passengers traveling by the railways. Hungry travelers were served delicious meals at reasonable prices. In the exhibit building, there were rail cars, wagons, trucks, and cars from past eras. There is a collection of railroad post office car, a box office car, and a stock car used in the Owens Valley north of Los Angeles. There are exhibits that explain how a steam engine works with cutaway examples. Just outside of the exhibit building, across the tracks and the locomotive displays, is the gift shop, where plenty of train-inspired gifts and souvenirs are available. The Traveltown Museum is an impressive take on what transportation technology was like 150 years ago. This is a wonderful place with families with younger children who enjoy a sunny afternoon on the edge of Griffith Park.